Hey, welcome back to another episode of Inside Gaming Daily.
For Thursday, it's China Watch Day 3, video games under siege. Love that graphic.
Believe it or not, there's still a lot of big news emerging concerning the censorship crisis Blizzard kicked off earlier this week by punishing Hearthstone champion Blitzchung for verbally supporting Hong Kong independence protests. This thing just won't go away.
No, it won't. Where the YouTube views are, the news shall follow. Yeah, the crisis has opened up fertile ground for rivals to pounce.
And pounce they are.
You delivered that perfectly.
I got it. Even the internet's boogeyman, Tim Sweeney, is scoring points in the wake of Blizzard's PR nightmare by promising that Epic would never censor Fortnite's competitors' political beliefs.
Yeah, the subtext there is pretty obvious. Delete Battle.net and reinstall Fortnite. On top of all of that, all this controversy provides an excellent backdrop to examine the current state of Chinese censorship in gaming, so we'll be taking a look at that as well.
Buckle up, because the controversy train not many trains with seatbelts, still has plenty of coal in the boiler.
First up, former scourge of all video games, Epic CEO Tim Sweeney slid into home base yesterday to scoop up some good guy brownie points that Blizzard just dumped all over the floor.
Yeah, in a response to controversy over Blizzard banning Blitzchung Wai-chung, an Epic Games spokesperson told The Verge that Epic supports everyone's right to express their views on politics and human rights. We wouldn't ban or punish a Fortnite player or content creator for speaking on those topics.
That was later backed up by Tim Sweeney himself, right, Brian?
Yeah, Tim Sweeney added that Epic supports the rights of Fortnite players and creators to speak about politics and human rights. He added, as long as they sign an exclusive deal with the Epic Game Store, we cool.
Someone later asked Sweeney if that included not punishing a player who hypothetically said free Hong Kong in a post-game interview. He replied, exactly. So that's cool and all. You know, we don't want to rob Sweeney of his good guy points here, but excuse a brief moment of editorialization here.
Political beliefs are easy to protect when they're obviously on the side of personal freedoms and human rights.
This is one of those situations where it is kind of easy to tell which side is right.
Lob that one up.
But I have to wonder, how would Epic react if a Fortnite champion threw on a MAGA hat and started screaming about how all the impure races needed to be kept out of the United States? So that's not so comfy, is it? And that's essentially what sparked all of this in the first place. Blizzard made rules to prevent anyone from throwing out any beliefs of any kind, regardless of how right or obviously correct they may be. Free speech can cut both ways. Just throwing that one out there, devil's advocation over. Just wanted to chip that little what if into the mix.
Sorry you hate freedom, dude.
I don't even care about America, Lawrence.
I love America so much.
I just want to love America more!
Have fun with Chinese Inside Gaming.
Welcome back to Inside China for today. Xi Jinping is number one. Regardless, this is an instance of the free market chugging right along. A Blizzard competitor is using the controversy to differentiate themselves and specify their own policies towards political speech.
Yeah, Epic Games isn't the only one cashing in on the controversy either, are they, Brian?
A few days ago, actually after the whole Hearthstone thing happened, the rival card game Gods Unchained criticized Blizzard and said they would pay for all Blitzchung's lost winnings. They tweeted no player should be punished for their beliefs. So it was a much smaller card game, but seemed like they saw an opportunity to score a few good guy points of their own.
They later added that Blizzard proved that centralized games companies will censor and exploit their players if it is in their immediate financial interest.
That's all games companies.
Yeah, some of this stuff is kind of like teenagers waking up to like, wait a minute, capitalism might be bad. But whatever.
Just finding out about this no ethical consumption thing? What is that?
I don't want to trivialize it. These are good things to say and it's good to have this discussion, but you know, this has kind of been around for a while, which we'll get to in a minute.
It is kind of open season for dunking.
Yeah,
Blizzard has put themselves in such a horrible position. As for Epic, it's worth noting that a massive Chinese company, you guessed it, Tencent, they own about 40% of Epic stock.
Yeah, and that was actually bandied around a while ago when people were trying to say that Epic Game Store was evil. Wouldn't that then make Sweeney possibly punish or cut ties with the player who spoke out against China?
China, which was spying on players through the Epic Game Store that people were alleging?
Stealing all their sweet pictures folders?
Sweeney replied to that hypothetical too, saying, quote, "That will never happen on my watch as the founder, CEO, and controlling shareholder."
And just like that, Sweeney went from reviled proprietor of the Epic Game Store to a champion of free speech.
God bless Tim Sweeney.
So this whole thing actually wasn't much of a change of policy for Sweeney either. He's tweeted in the past that he would personally work to prevent Chinese interference in Epic Games' operations as long as he's the controlling shareholder. He said that before, but everyone was busy hating him then, but now he's the good guy all of a sudden. So I don't know, maybe you guys were a little hard on old Tim all along. That's been my position for a while. Maybe it took this to put everything in perspective.
So I'm speedwalking through E3 with churro.
Don't you have a lounge you can sit in and eat that churro?
Billionaires are just like us.
They really are.
I eat churros.
I also don't make eye contact and look vaguely homeless.
The wealthiest people look the worst sometimes. Nothing against you, Tim. I know you're a big fan of the show. These are just the latest twists in a controversy that has completely engulfed Blizzard and our YouTube channel over the last few days.
Yeah, Sony even announced the PlayStation 5. We have such about it. It's got shakies in the controller. It's all
haptic. The other day when I didn't realize the weight and heft of the Blizzard story, I said to Lawrence, I was like, weird that we're not doing a PS5 story.
It is weird, but that is a sign of the time, so.
And I don't read.
After Blizzard punished Blitzchung, pretty much everyone outside of China came to his defense, including some of Blizzard's own employees who held a small protest in support.
Speaking of protests, Brian, what's going on today?
There appeared to be some kind of half-assed call on Reddit today to gather outside of Blizzard's headquarters in Irvine, California, just so people could come together and, I don't know, hold like an impromptu pro-Hong Kong protest. But it's not clear how many people actually showed up. Maybe because Thursday morning isn't the best time of the week to hold a protest. Maybe plan this out a little bit, or at least hold it on a Saturday.
Yeah, the person who's protesting it seemed to have an awful lot of fire to get this done right now. That wasn't the only problem with the protest either. The Reddit thread, which was posted on the Orange County subreddit, is just full of normal residents dunking on nerds for only just now waking up to Chinese human rights violations and wondering why this isn't at the Chinese embassy instead of a video game company.
Whatever, Dad. Video games are more important. They are.
Get in the van, we're going to Applebee's.
Meanwhile, one of the biggest Hearthstone streamers, Kriparian, also tweeted a statement in support of the Hong Kong protesters saying, quote, with such a large part of their country pushing for change, they are and deserve to be on the right side of history.
And the Hearthstone caster Brian Kibler also announced that he's stepping down from casting Hearthstone matches and said of Blizzard, quote, that kind of appeasement is simply not something I can in good conscience be associated with. You know, there are people putting actual stakes on the lines and actually sacrificing something for their sentiment, which is deeds not words, as a very brave and honest man once said.
Badlands Chugs?
As a lifelong rank 5 Hearthstone player, I will also be stepping down from badly playing Hearthstone.
But what about all your dust?
There's also a movement to boycott Blizzard, and some are claiming that the company is now making it harder for people to delete their accounts.
We haven't confirmed that because I haven't deleted my account, but a screenshot from Charlotte Mather on Twitter shows some difficulty in deleting her account, and that tweet went viral. I've also seen some threads on 4chan of people trying to delete their accounts and then like shouting racial slurs at Blizzard account support people. There are some issues with people trying to delete their accounts instantly. Basically, you have to file a ticket and wait because, I don't know, maybe they're trying to sandbag people deleting their accounts in a fury. Because who knows, man, it's the internet. In 2 weeks, people are gonna forget about this.
Forget about what? Brief aside, we were able to confirm a few images in circulation are hoaxes.
Yeah, specifically this one claiming that Winnie the Pooh costumes are banned from BlizzCon. We checked the actual BlizzCon rules page and shocker, it's just not there. Whoa, that was close.
What a relief.
Would have had to return that $20 Amazon purchase. Meanwhile, Blizzard has been really quiet about the whole thing. Not a big surprise there. Pretty much anything they say would probably make the situation much worse at this point.
Yeah, Brian, what are they saying?
Well, a Blizzard spokesperson told Engadget yesterday that they are assessing the situation for now, so real boffo quote there, but otherwise we haven't heard anything from them really after their post on Tuesday about banning Blitzchung.
Yeah, they've since posted another unrelated blog, but they've disabled comments, most likely to try to avoid negative comments about the Hong Kong situation.
Fans have been flooding other Hearthstone blog posts with angry comments. You know, the internet always finds a way. You can shut off one valve, but it's just gonna make the pressure build up somewhere else.
But while this
Free Hong Kong! Also nerf combo, please.
That's what it looks like when a pipe bursts. Yes, thank you, Brian.
the People's Republic of Inside regrets to announce that Brian has been
But while this Blizzard controversy is new, it's important to note that companies have been censoring their games and their content for China for years now. And this is something that a lot of people bring up. Whataboutism is not super helpful in times like these, but it is important to survey the landscape to get a really good understanding of what's actually happening.
Yeah, let's run through a few examples. For one, there's the mobile version of PUBG, which censors the name Taiwan in all text chats.
That was definitely done to not offend China, which considers Taiwan to be part of the mainland as part of its One China policy.
Meanwhile, the Taiwanese horror game Devotion was pulled from Steam earlier this year after players discovered an image that referenced Chinese President Xi Jinping and Winnie the Pooh.
There was also a big Rainbow Six Siege controversy last year, right, Brian?
Yeah, it was reported that Ubisoft Montreal was planning to censor parts of the game to comply with Chinese regulation. No Winnie the Poohs in this one, but it did include removing blood splatters and skulls, as well as sexualized neon signs, which are the best neon signs, and slot machines. Players were pissed though, there was a big outcry, and Ubisoft backed down and ended up not censoring it.
There are also allegations out there that Blizzard has made some more subtle censorship moves in other games. People on Reddit claim to have discovered some client-side profanity filters in World of Warcraft that include no extradition to China and free Hong Kong.
Someone also tweeted that Blizzard won't allow battle tags on Battle.net that include phrases like free Hong Kong.
Same disclaimers before, we haven't verified that ourselves. Possible to manufacture some of these screenshots, so you know, it's the internet. It's not just Blizzard who is capitulating to China though. Some of the biggest tech giants in the world are doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, just recently Google deleted a game on its app store called The Revolution of Our Times, which let players roleplay as a protester.
Google, according to the developer, pulled it because they said it violated rules related to sensitive events.
I wonder what events they were talking about.
All hail great leader.
A Google spokesman told the Wall Street Journal that they have a policy that prohibits developers from, quote, capitalizing on sensitive events such as attempting to make money from serious ongoing conflicts or tragedies through a game.
Which is a good policy. It's kind of similar to the Blizzard problem, where they have a rule in place to try to divest them of getting embroiled in any political problems, but that rule itself is causing them to be embroiled in political problems. So it's an interesting issue. Meanwhile, Apple also took down an app that let Hong Kong protesters track police activity. It infuriated China, where the state-run People's Daily newspaper called it toxic software.
As for video games as a whole, China this year has rolled out all kinds of new rules for developers who want to get their games into the country.
Yeah, this is an interesting bit of context that we haven't really fully covered on Inside Gaming Daily yet. So last year, the government froze approvals of all new video games, but in December, that was lifted, and that's a huge market, so there's a bunch of people just waiting at the door to sprint on through.
Right, they had a whole bunch of new restrictions though. Games like Mahjong and poker weren't allowed. Neither were games that referenced the country's imperial history.
And as usual, games with blood and corpses weren't allowed either.
PUBG Mobile in China was changed to comply with stricter violence laws, so now when you kill someone in the game, they just wave goodbye to you. It's the perfect crime, killing someone but they don't die.
So despite all that censorship or changes or whatever, developers can't stay away from China and its huge, huge market. A few years ago, they even got Captain America himself, Chris Evans, to star in a trailer for Call of Duty Online, which was a version of Call of Duty tailored specifically for the Chinese market. So kind of an interesting little get there, getting the defender of freedom and the representation of all things that we love here in America to sell a video game to China. Good
He'll
stuff.
do that sometimes. He was just in a Mexican milk commercial.
Dude, get that money.
Leche. It's not just video games either. Major US airlines have censored mentions of Taiwan to avoid offending China too.
Yeah, what are some examples of that, Brian?
Instead of listing it as Taiwan, they'll use TW as an abbreviation, or they'll say Taipei, which is Taiwan's capital. The Olympics do that too. They refer to it as Chinese Taipei instead of Taiwan, like you'll see that in the opening ceremony. So it's not just video games doing this here. It's lots of different industries and events.
The second it touches my idle entertainment is where I draw the line. Getting back to Blizzard though, it's worth noting that the biggest event of the year, BlizzCon, is happening in just a few weeks, and that sucks for them so bad. The problem is there are so many groups within Blizzard that are working on projects that have nothing to do with Hearthstone, and now it's everyone's goddamn problem. I empathize with that a lot. It really sucks to be doing your best and trying to make a good thing, and then some decision from some group, from some executive that you never talked to and have never met in your life suddenly creates huge problems for you and distracts everyone from everything you've been working on.
And while Blizzard might have been hoping to rebound from last year's Diablo Immortal headlines, this controversy threatens to make this year's event much, much worse.
Blizzard stood to gain a lot of ground theoretically this year. There is a Diablo game that hasn't been announced, but has basically been announced. And everyone expects to see that this year. That was supposed to be the big redeeming moment, provided it happens. And now all this has to happen. I really feel bad for everybody who's working at Blizzard, except for the people who made this terrible, terrible PR call. That sucks, but that shouldn't prevent you from making your position known and deciding what to do with your money and your time.
They were so close.
Yeah.
Just weeks out.
They could have just waited like a month, or maybe not been so harsh with the punishment or something.
Or it could have happened a month earlier, and they probably would have been in better shape.
I mean, you can't plan when somebody's going to win a Hearthstone tournament and stick up for Hong Kong, so.
Sure you can. And you control everything. We are the mouthpiece of the leaders of this great nation of gaming.
That's a really good line to end on. No ad either, so yeah, it's all, you can take it, I'll just be back. Media also picked up the story too, so at this point the whole thing has turned into a full-fledged PR disaster.
Ah, Blizzard's used to them, don't worry about it. Yeah, at this point, Blizzard is even making EA look good.
As we talked about yesterday, the whole thing started after Blizzard suspended a player over the weekend for making a statement supporting anti-government protests in Hong Kong.
Tell us more, Brian.
So